Hello, and welcome back to the Self-Love Archives podcast. I'm your host, Julia Salvia, and for today's episode number 11, I'm here with you for a spooky episode. Mainly because Halloween, Samhain, is just a couple of days after this episode goes live, so happy Halloween. If you are brand new to this podcast, welcome and thank you so much for being here. This is the podcast where I show you how to love yourself more. And that's through the ups and downs, the pros and cons, the positive and negatives. Loving yourself more is a daily choice. Loving yourself more is so fucking important. And I'm here to share my experiences with you on my own self-love journey and things that I've learned on this journey in hopes that it'll help you. You've heard a lot about my experiences, and I hope to share so many more with you as this podcast goes on and on and on forever and ever and ever. But I'm so excited to be finally welcoming guests onto the podcast so that we can share our experiences together and share what self-love means to us and just talk about so many more topics and so many more things. And I'm so excited to start doing that very, very soon. Before we jump into all of the things in this episode, I want to take a quick second to talk about the eclipse that we had yesterday. So yesterday, October 28th, we had a lunar eclipse in Taurus. Now, Taurus is exalted in the moon, basically meaning that Taurus and the moon get along. So while maybe with other signs we would have felt this energy from this eclipse even more so, we might not feel it as much because the moon is exalted in Taurus. I do believe that any full moon really does kind of drain the energy. You may be feeling tired today or like your energy is drained. Hopefully today, as you're listening to this, or for the week after the eclipse, you can take some time to recharge. Now, normally, if I was going to have you look up where this is happening for you in your chart, I would tell you to look at where you have Taurus. But I think that this eclipse came to fruition for a lot of us where we have Scorpio. Yesterday, as we had this eclipse, Scorpio was opposing Taurus, basically meaning it was on the opposite side. If you can imagine like a circle, Taurus is on one side of the circle, Scorpio's on the other, kind of like that. And sitting with Scorpio are the planets Mercury and Mars. Mercury is the planet of communication. Mars is the planet of frustration, aggression. To give you kind of an example, my boyfriend is a Taurus rising, and he has Scorpio in his 7th house of relationships. Hi, that means me. He does also have Scorpio in Mercury and Mars. So Mercury and Mars being in Scorpio and him having Mercury and Mars in Scorpio creates, I feel like, even more aligning and heavy energy with this placement. So if he was getting frustrated at anyone, like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and hopefully not today, but it was me. So look to where you have Scorpio in your chart, and that's where I really believe this eclipse has come to fruition for you. It's the day after the eclipse, so we may still be feeling some of the effects of it, but we also may just be tired. With a lot of the events that happen in astrology, I find that there are a couple of astrology apps and social media and people that will fear-monger or use these certain patterns in astrology, like a Mercury retrograde, an eclipse, to kind of scare people, to fear-monger you, to make you think that something bad is going to happen. And I hate that, because if you've been here with me, you know that astrology is a much more complicated and pattern-based study. Everything that's happening, especially even retrogrades, are happening in one sign in the sky, like for our world, but that affects everyone's charts differently from the other. I wanted to put that out there because it just hurts my heart when I see this fear-mongering going on in regards to astrology, because astrology is really just this beautiful thing to help you understand, to help you look at a pattern. And sure, there are challenging things and there are amazing things, but how that comes to fruition for you is never a horrible thing. I'm not saying you don't have permission to blame everything on the retrograde. By all means, blame the retrograde. But don't fear astrology, and don't let someone or something else let you fear astrology either. I hope you use this week to replenish yourself, and I hope that when the next retrograde or eclipse comes around, you feel just a little bit better about what's going on in our sky. Today's episode, I want to talk about something that is kind of close to my heart. It's really a small part of a bigger story that I've shared pieces of throughout my journey on social media, but also to spread awareness on things like sexual assault and domestic violence. In this episode, though, I want to talk about Halloween. And I'm going to bring those two subjects together, and it's not what you're thinking. Halloween saved my life. I get uncomfortable jumping into very serious topics and very serious stories without prefacing anything. But with that being said, please note that this is a smaller piece to a larger story that we will talk about at some point if we haven't already touched on pieces of it. Throughout my early 20s, and even prior to my 20s, but really focusing in on my 20s, I had been in quite a few relationships that were abusive. Emotionally abusive, physically abusive, mentally abusive. It was a long pattern, even since my teenage years, that kept repeating itself and coming to fruition in a different way. But essentially the basis of all of these relationships was the same, and that was that the person I was with did not respect me, did not treat me appropriately, and this person was just so, these people were just so incredibly unkind. I don't deny my part in each of these relationships and how my insecurities and fears within myself kept me in these relationships that were not safe. How these people treated me and what these people did to me was painful, extremely wrong on so many different levels, illegal in some cases, and truly scarred me for the rest of my life. But I like to look at it as if it built me into the woman that I am. It's a part of my story. I am so much stronger now and believe in myself so much more. And I am so much more secure with who I am. And I know that I deserve the absolute world. And I hope you know that too. Halloween saved my life. I started this series on social media called the 31 Days of Halloween. And basically, in short, that was creating 31 different makeup looks for each day of October until Halloween. I started this series in college, and that series is actually what blew up my social media. It is what brought me to where I am today. Of course, things are so much different today, but Halloween gave me the opportunity to create in ways that I had never created before. The 31 Days of Halloween actually began as a project in one of my entrepreneurship classes in college. And the basis of this class was that you had to come up with something, anything, that you had never done before or never worked on before. It can be multiple projects, it could be one whole project, but the amount of time that you spent on this project, whether you ended up good at it or not, like learning how to play guitar, as long as you didn't know how to play guitar, you could totally learn how to play guitar and use that as like your project for the class. The amount of time and the amount of growth that you experienced in learning that new thing or doing that new thing is what got you an A in the class. So I had never done the 31 days of Halloween before, but I had dabbled in Halloween looks, and I asked my professor if this would be a valid project that I could do in class, and he said yes. And I was like, okay, great, let's do it. So I did the 31 days of Halloween. It was over 350 hours of work. And by the time Halloween was over, with the amount of work and the amount of time that went into that project, I got an A in the class before the semester was even over. So much love and appreciation came from the 31 days of Halloween that the year after that, I repeated it and I did it again. Knowing how much work was involved in it, I think I'm crazy for doing it, but I just loved the creativity and I loved that so many other people did as well. And that year after, the second year that I did the 31 days of Halloween is when my social media accounts blew up. So I did it in 2015, 2016, 2017. Like, I did it religiously every single year because I knew that the 31 days of Halloween was what brought my channels and my social media success. Halloween became this super important time in my career every single year. It was where I got the most partnerships. It was where I got the most love. It was really just this wonderful rush, not only from all of the love that I was receiving, but all the looks that I was creating. It just became this super important part of my life every single year. So in the midst of these relationships that I had in my mid-20s, creating 31 different Halloween looks created an escape for me from reality. In the middle of 2017, after I graduated with my master's degree, I had met my now ex-boyfriend. This person from the get-go was way too good to be true. Everything was way too good to be true. And about 3 months into that relationship, I'm in love and I can't believe I found this person, but something in me was like, this is too good to be true. Something doesn't feel right. Something is wrong. And 3 months into that relationship, it was like I got punched in the face. All of the skeletons in this man's closet fell out. Perfect timing, right before the 31 days of Halloween. There were some super serious accusations being made against him and about him from past relationships that he's had. And all of these were extremely concerning. If you were to ask me now, if this were to happen now, I would have immediately ran the other direction. Like, this was the biggest red flag that you could ever get. Maybe not ever, but definitely up there. It was 100% up there. But I didn't have proof or truth behind this red flag to really validate that it was true. But from that period on, I saw this panic and this agitation and this anger come out of this person and it be very heavily directed towards me. So 2017 is here. I'm doing all of these amazing makeup looks. And I remember I would stay up till 3 a.m., 5 a.m. even sometimes to finish a lot of these makeup looks, to get them out on time one day after the next day after the next day. The frustration that came from him and the anger and like the blaming, like this accusatory nature, saying, what are you doing up till 3 o'clock in the morning? Like, who are you talking to? Whose house are you over? And so many of those nights that I was filming all of these makeup looks and having so much fun doing it. I had this friend at the time who would also do the same thing, and we'd be on the phone like with each other till like 3 o'clock in the morning. And I had this person who's just accusing me of everything in the book when all I'm doing is just something that I absolutely love. Unfortunately, I let each of these moments slide. I kept diving in deeper. Every time there was screaming or yelling or accusing, I would dive even deeper into the Halloween looks. I would literally hang up the phone, continue putting all the makeup on my face, edit the video, get up the look. I'd be like, leave me the fuck alone. Go back to editing the makeup look. The 31 days of Halloween was so important to me that I kind of just swept all of that under the rug and let it go. Fast forward to January of 2018. A couple months later, we did move in together, and I know what you're thinking. You're like, what the fuck were you thinking? Call me crazy. I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. It matches with the energy that's happening currently. My life would look so different right now if I did not move into that home with him. 2018 was a really, really significantly tough year. But kind of extracting the positives, which I do this a lot. There is something so fucking horrible that happens to me, but I try to turn around and be like, what is happening for me? And moving into this home and all of these things that happened, as horrible as they are, these happened for me. When we start to look at life as this thing that's working with us and for us, we have this ability to move past all of these horrible or negative things that we feel that have happened to us. We take ourselves out of the equation, out of this place of victimizing ourselves, and look at this experience or this chapter or this moment in time as this huge piece of growth. Of course, in the moment, oh my gosh, in the moment, it's horrible, it's tough, it's rock bottom, it's depressive, and it's disappointing, and it's all of those feelings all mixed up together. But as we move past and we grow past these very dark moments in our life, if we can understand that these moments are happening for us and not to us, we can really remove that dark feeling of victimizing ourselves beyond what has happened. And that's in no way to devalue my experience or anyone's experience when it comes to very serious and very sad chapters in our lives. It's more to help us take that next step onto this bigger, better, more beautiful life that we're living. So in 2018, I experienced a ton of abuse from this person. In addition, that same year, my parents decided to get divorced. In that same year, I really lost a lot of friendships that I had because of how far I moved away from New Jersey. I lived in upstate Connecticut for his job. So I was very lonely in this new state, in this new town, in this new place. When you're in such a dark place with and in a relationship with someone who kind of pulls all of this energy from you, you don't have the energy to really give elsewhere. So by the time Halloween came around, my energy was gone. My cup was empty. I was in this place of numbness where I knew I had to leave. I knew I had to move and get out of this space. I was very much ready to take that really scary, but that next step away from this relationship and away from what hand life had fed me. So despite my cup being completely empty, I dived into work. I dived into the 31 days of Halloween with really just this mindset of, I love this. I know this works. I know so many other people love this. I don't want to let people down, but I also love this, and it's gonna keep me busy and away from this very fucked up life that I'm currently living. So not only did I dive into the 31 days of Halloween, but I planned this influencer dinner that I had actually been planning for a couple of years with one of my friends for over 100 influencers and brands in the city. Not only did I do the 31 days of Halloween, but we also planned that dinner as well, simultaneously. That October, oh, wow, I have some emotion coming up because all I'm saying like in my head is like, I'm so fucking proud of you for pushing through, even though you had an empty cup and nothing left to give. But you found it somewhere in you. You found that energy and that faith and that belief somewhere in you to continue to do what you love and to continue to survive despite what was actually going on in real time. And that is why the 31 days of Halloween saved me. Throughout that month, planning the dinner and planning and doing all of the Halloween looks, I came up with some of the most beautiful makeup looks I had ever done in my entire life. And we hosted the most successful dinner that my company, Beautifale, had ever had. Rather than letting myself kind of throw dirt on this hole that I was in, I used this really crazy time to push forward and do what I love. There's one or two videos actually where I am filming. I think there's more than that. But there's one on the top of my head right now where I am filming a scarecrow makeup look and my ex is absolutely berating me behind the camera, screaming at me, throwing things, and the look on my face is anger, numbness, laughter, crying. It's a roller coaster of emotions all in one. But I still continued to do that makeup, that scarecrow makeup. Like my whole face was like orange as this conversation was going on. I still pushed myself to sit there and be who I was, to come out of this horrible relationship, this horrible place, to share what I wanted to share. In 2018, Halloween saved my life. It really, really did. It gave me an outlet of allowing myself to continue to express myself, to share what I love. In the middle of October, when I went to the city to go host this dinner event, he had actually moved all of his stuff out. And I remember that morning getting a call while I was in New Jersey, and I decided to not answer it. And I, from that moment, never spoke to him again. There are a few other moments where Halloween specifically, but my job had been this escape from hard times I was going through in my life. My next relationship was very similar in that it was very emotionally abusive and manipulative. And every time things got really hard, I would escape into this place of becoming a workaholic. So while Halloween saved me, it became this pattern almost where I would allow myself, but also force myself in a way to forget about the world around me and dive into work. While Halloween saved me, because it gave me the courage and it gave me the strength to push myself, to focus on something else, it also became really hard to leave it behind. I don't do the 31 days of Halloween anymore. I did not do it this year. I did not do it last year. I didn't do it the year prior. 2020 and 2021, I made the decision to not fully do the 31 days of Halloween because I was in a much better headspace, a happier headspace where I didn't need to use work to escape reality anymore. And I could feel it every single time I tried to go into these huge series like the 31 Days of Halloween or go into this workaholic mode. I felt very disconnected from work. I didn't feel as though I needed to use work as this escape, as this thing to keep me busy anymore. Because I was in a good place. I was in a happy place. I was in a positive place. I was in a healthy place with myself, with the relationships around me. I didn't need to use work as an escape anymore. So when I realized that, I let the 31 days of Halloween go so that I could actually focus on creating content that I truly loved. And also coming back to this place of enjoying the content that I was creating. As the past couple of years have gone by, I have done just that. I may have transitioned a little bit more away from makeup. And I think it's because I had used makeup as this escape from reality at one point for so long that it made me very tired and it didn't excite me anymore because it brought me back to that place of detriment, of this have to, and I couldn't find the fun in it anymore. I've been more so on this self-love journey, sharing my story with you and all of these different moments from my experience in my own self-love journey. I find so much more joy in the work and the content that I share now. Just kind of living life with you, sharing love with you. And while I still love a spooky season makeup, and I love spooky season, and I feel forever grateful to spooky season, I'm hoping as I take on this journey, I can start to find and start to love creating with makeup and with beauty in this whole brand new way than I had before. I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me and listening to this special episode of the Self-Love Archives podcast. If you or anyone else is experiencing emotional, mental, or physical abuse, please make sure to check out the show notes for some really important information and where you can get help. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this story, and I'm so excited to see you guys next week for episode number 12. Happy Halloween. I hope you had a wonderful, wonderful Halloween weekend, and I hope you have a wonderful Halloween. And I give all of my thanks and all of my love to Halloween season. I love you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye.